Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever looked in the mirror and felt like a stranger was staring back at you, like some part of you had vanished, stolen by people who smiled to your face, but fed off your weakness? Behind your back, that emptiness, it isn't just pain, it's a warning, a signal that someone has been trying to write your story for you, erasing your strength line by line. Toxic people don't attack with fists. They come for your confidence. They invade your mind slowly, convincing you to doubt your voice, your choices, even your worth. They don't want to defeat you in public. They want to own you in silence. And if you felt that if you've questioned who you are because of what someone else said or did, then you're not broken. You're waking up. The truth is, it doesn't take much for toxic energy to enter your life. A cruel word said casually, a subtle manipulation dressed as advice, a pattern of control masked as love or loyalty, and before you even realize it, you're shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. The problem is, no amount of kindness can satisfy someone who feeds off control. No amount of loyalty can calm someone who fears your freedom. They didn't want you better, they wanted you smaller. You've been told to keep the peace, to avoid conflict, to not be dramatic, but what about your inner war? What about the battle that's been burning behind your smile every single day? That war matters, that voice matters, you matter, and this is not the end of your story. This is the chapter where everything changes, because something powerful happens when you stop looking for validation and start reclaiming your identity, when you stop apologizing for your boundaries, when you stop waiting to be chosen and choose yourself instead. The people who tried to break you thought they were burying you, but they didn't know you were a seed. And now you rise. Stay with me, because what comes next is not just survival transformation. It's the comeback. Your silence has been preparing for you. Didn't go through that pain for nothing. You endured it for a reason. And in this moment, that reason is waking up inside you. This time you don't fall, you stand, you fight. And by the end of this, if you stay locked in, you will win. What broke you wasn't stronger than you. It was simply louder, more persistent, more willing to wear you down. Piece by piece, because something left a mark on you doesn't mean it gets to define you. You are not the pain you endured. You are not the names you were called, the silence you sat in, love that was used against you like a weapon. You are not the failure someone projected onto you, nor the weakness they tried to convince you you had. You are the one who stayed standing. When everything in you screamed to give up, that's power, that's endurance, that's the beginning. Unshakable strength. Toxic people want you to internalize their poison. That's their strategy. They break you by making their behavior your identity. They lie to you enough times that you start lying to yourself. You begin to see yourself through their distorted lens too much. Not enough always. Never worthy. That's not truth. That's psychological warfare. And the longer you stay in it, the more it rewires how you see the world. But no matter how deep it goes, it can be undone. Your brain isn't broken. It's adaptable. What's being trained into you can be unlearned, and that starts by separating who you are from what happened to you. You are not what hurt you. You are what survived it. Let that truth sink into your bones, because for every moment you were made to feel invisible, your spirit held on for every time you were gaslighted into silence. A fire quietly kept burning inside you. That fire is still there. You haven't lost it. You've just been taught to ignore it. But it's time to unlearn their lies and relearn your truth. You don't need their permission to exist boldly. You don't need their validation to believe in yourself. Again, the scars you carry aren't signs of weakness. They're evidence of battles fought with courage. They're proof that even at your lowest, you kept going, you didn't collapse. You endured, and if that strength lived in you once, it still does. Maybe it's buried, maybe it's bruised, but it's there waiting to be reclaimed. Every time you doubted yourself, but kept moving, you were building it. Every time you stayed kind in the face of cruelty, you were growing it. That strength didn't disappear. It evolved quietly, powerfully. Let this be the moment you draw a line between your past and your power. Let this be the second you decide that you're not going to let what happened to you define what happens next. You've been through enough, you've bled enough. Now it's time to rebuild stronger, smarter, unbreakable. The people who tried to destroy you didn't realize they were shaping a warrior, and now the warrior doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to beg, doesn't need to prove anything. That warrior just needs to rise, and that warrior is you. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are the ones you'd never suspect were battling storms in silence, because real strength isn't loud. It doesn't always scream or shout. Sometimes it simply survives. It gets up when no one is watching. It keeps moving when the weight feels unbearable. It smiles through pain, not because it's fake, but because it refuses to let darkness win. That's what you've been doing. Even if no one else noticed, you've been carrying the heaviness of unspoken wounds, masking the ache in your chest with everyday smiles. Pretending everything's fine when it's anything but. And yet you're still here, breathing, fighting. That's not weakness, that's resilience. There's a quiet power in not reacting and walking away instead of lashing out and holding your, I don't need to argue for my worth. I know who I am. And that knowing, that quiet certainty, is where your healing begins. You don't have to prove your strength to anyone who tried to make you feel small. You don't need to explain your boundaries to people who never respected them. You've already given too much of yourself to those who only saw your light as something to dim. It's time to reclaim your energy, to pour into yourself the love, loyalty, and forgiveness you kept giving to those who never earned it. You've been enough all along. You just forgot because they wanted you to let their confusion be your confirmation. Let their silence be your signal when they realize you no longer play by their rules. They'll panic, they'll twist stories, shift blame, even act like the victim, but don't fall for it. Their chaos is not your responsibility. Their reaction is not your reflection. Hold your head high and stay rooted in your truth. You're not cold, you're clear, you're not cruel. You're healing, and healing requires space, silence, and the strength to let go of what once felt familiar, even when it was toxic. You don't owe anyone a version of yourself that makes them comfortable while you suffer. You owe yourself freedom, peace, power, and that begins when you decide you've had enough of being controlled by someone else. Insecurity. This is your silence, your strength, your story. And from this moment forward, you write every word, not out of fear, not out of pain, but from the deep, unshakable truth that you've already won by refusing to be broken. Healing doesn't need noise, growth doesn't need attention. Most powerful transformations happen in silence. Away from the eyes that once judged you, doubted you, dismissed you, because when you finally decide to reclaim your power, it starts in private. It starts with the small decisions. No one sees the moments where you choose discipline over distraction. Nights you stay with. Your thoughts, instead of running from them the mornings you get up, even when your heart feels heavy. That's where the new version of you is being built. Not for show, not for revenge, but for peace. Toxic people conditioned you to believe that your worth depended on their response, that you only mattered when they approved, when they noticed, when they applauded. But that was never love. It was control, and now your greatest act of power is refusing to play their game. You don't need them to clap for your growth. You don't need their eyes on your healing. What you need is your own commitment, your own consistency, your own decision to be done with who they tried to make you real. Confidence doesn't come from being praised. It comes from keeping the promises you make to yourself. And it starts with the smallest ones. Set the boundary. Speak the truth. Say no without guilt. You are allowed to protect your energy. You are allowed to rest without apologizing. You are allowed to distance yourself from anyone who disturbs your peace. And each time you do, you send a message to your mind and your soul. I matter. I'm worth protecting. I'm done shrinking to fit broken spaces. The world may not see the war you're fighting, but your soul does, and every step you take toward becoming whole again is sacred. You don't need to explain your healing journey to people who are never willing to understand your pain. Let your actions speak. Let your silence speak. Let your peace speak. You're not here to convince anyone of your value. You're here to become so aligned with your truth that their opinions become irrelevant. Growth is quiet because it's personal, and this season of your life is not about proving anything. It's about becoming everything you were always meant to be. They tried to erase your identity, but they couldn't touch your potential. They tried to dim your unshakable, unbreakable, unstoppable. Keep going. No noise, no permission, just purpose. There's a fire inside you that pain tried to put out, but it failed because every time you were torn down, something deeper began to rise. Not rage, not revenge, power. And that power doesn't come from pretending you're okay. It comes from finally choosing not to stay. Broken from using the pain as fuel instead of chains. You've spent enough time wondering why it happened, asking questions that never got answers. Now it's time to ask something better. What can I build with everything that tried to bury me? Transformation begins when you stop seeking closure and start creating momentum. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need to understand why they did what they did. You already know enough. They were never committed to your healing, your peace, future, but you are, and that's all that matters. Now, every tear, every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, it wasn't meaningless. It was fuel. Pain doesn't have to paralyze you. It can push you forward, not in desperation, but in direction. Start moving, shift your focus, build your body, build your mind, build your discipline. Not for applause, not to prove them wrong. Do it because you deserve to feel strong in your own skin again. Do it because you're tired of living in pieces when you were born to be whole. Every rep, every page, every breath of growth is a declaration. I choose me. I choose progress over pity. I choose creation over destruction. They took your peace for granted, but you're about to build a life so powerful, their absence becomes irrelevant. Let your focus become your weapon while they waste their energy watching, talking, doubting. You move in silence, you execute, you level up, you evolve, not out of hate, but out of purpose. The best payback is not attention, it's success. It's joy, it's building a world so full of strength and clarity that their memory holds no weight. Not because you forgot, but because you outgrew the version of yourself that needed them to be better. You were never weak, you were loyal, you were open, you were real, and they mistook that for softness. But now the softness remains tempered with steel. They tried to turn your love into a weapon against you, but now you hold the blade, you're cutting away everything that no longer serves your growth. You're clearing the path, you're creating space for power to breathe. This is what rising looks like. It's not loud, it's not flashy, it's relentless, a quiet force that refuses to quit you. Don't need it to scream that you're coming back. Your actions will speak, your presence will speak, your strength will echo louder than their noise ever could. Let your grind be sacred. Let your progress be personal. This pain didn't come to end you, it came to awaken you. And now that you're awake, nothing can stop you, not them, not your past, not even doubt. You're not burning out, you're burning through. Keep going. The game changes the moment you stop playing by their rules. The second you stop trying to explain your value, something inside you shifts. You no longer seek their understanding. You no longer beg to be seen. You no longer shrink to fit the version of you that made them comfortable. That version is gone, the one that overgave, over-explained, over-apologized. Now there's only clarity, and from clarity comes power. When you see who they really were, you stop accepting crumbs and start building your own table. You stop being available to those who only show up to take you. Stop handing out access to people who only wanted control. Respect is not requested. It's demanded through how you carry yourself. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. You either set the standard or you settle, in the standard you set now will echo in every part of your future. No more watered down boundaries. No more silence when your soul says speak. No more walking away from your own truth just to keep fake peace. That's not peace, that's self-abandonment. And you've abandoned yourself enough times. You've stayed too long in places where your heart was ignored, where your voice was dismissed, where your value was only recognized when it served someone else's needs. That cycle ends here. You are allowed to be firm. You are allowed to be direct. You are allowed to stand tall and say, I don't allow this anymore. And you do it without guilt, with fear, without looking back. Because the version of you that tolerated disrespect isn't coming back. That version didn't know their worth. That version was surviving. Now you're stepping into someone who's no longer reacting, but responding. Someone who doesn't chase, but chooses. Someone who no longer asks to be chosen, but demands to be respected or walks away in silence. You don't need anyone's approval to evolve. You don't need closure to move forward. You don't need to explain your healing to people who only understand control. Let them misunderstand. You let them talk. Let them spin stories. Protect their ego. It's not your job to correct false narratives. It's your job to protect your peace. Let your growth speak. Let your peace speak. Let your new standards speak. Let your new negative. Because when someone tries to come back into your life and finds gates instead of open doors, that's when they realize they never broke you. They just lost access. This is your shift from being available to being intentional, from pleasing to protecting, from bending to building. No more emotional discounts, no more negotiating your value. From now on, you are the standard. You are the boundary. You are the force that no longer tolerates what once wounded you. And as you rise into this version of yourself, watch how the world adjusts, not because you shouted, but because you showed up different. Because now they don't control the terms you do, and that is real power. You don't rise by shouting louder. You rise by becoming so grounded, so locked in, that nothing can shake your sense of who you are. This is not about proving your worth. This is about remembering it. You've already been through the storm. You've already walked through fire and silence, through manipulation and doubt. Now you're standing in a new space, one where you no longer look for revenge, where the goal is no longer to be seen by others, but to see yourself clearly, fully, without distortion. That's the real victory, reclaiming the pieces they tried to erase, rebuilding the confidence they tried to steal, restoring the voice you were made to silence. You don't have to explain why you left the chaos. You don't have to justify your healing. Let the results speak. It's calm, but it's not weak. It's quiet, but it's not invisible. It's the kind of strength that comes after the breaking, not the one who tolerates disrespect, not the one who keeps peace at the cost of your sanity. That identity has expired, And what replaces it is someone who chooses peace, not pleads for it. Someone who walks away from confusion instead of staying to fix what was never yours to carry. You no longer respond from wounds, you respond from wisdom. You no longer react from pain. You choose from power. That shift changes everything. It changes who you attract. It changes what you allow. It changes the entire path of your life. And it all begins with the decision to stop chasing closure from people who are never capable of giving it. You're not here to convince them. You're here to conquer yourself, to conquer the fear, the doubt, the habits that held you back. This journey is personal, and the reward is peace. The kind that doesn't depend on anyone but you. This isn't a comeback for applause. This is a rebirth for your soul. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, every time you choose alignment over approval, you win, not for the world, for you. You came out of something that was meant to destroy you, and now you rise, not louder, but deeper, not desperate, but focused, not broken, but built. This is your becoming unstoppable, untouchable, unshaken. Keep moving. The world hasn't seen the best of you yet. This is your declaration to everything that tried to hold you back. You are no longer asked. You walk in with boundaries. You walk in with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove, because everything you needed to prove has already been done in private. You faced yourself, faced your fears, you faced the brutal silence of self-doubt, and still you kept going. That is not survival. That is mastery. That is transformation. You didn't just make it through, you changed because of it. And that change is permanent. Now you no longer settle for crumbs when you were born to feast. No longer entertain conversations that drain you, situations that belittle you, or people who confuse their access with your obligation. Just because someone had a place in your past doesn't mean they have a seat in your future. You've outgrown them, not out of hate, but out of healing. You've elevated beyond what once triggered you, and now the game has changed because you've changed. You no longer need to fight for closure. Your growth is the closure. Your peace is the proof. Your presence is the victory. Every moment you choose discipline, every time you move in purpose, you separate yourself from everything that tried to pull you back into chaos. You don't need revenge, you need alignment. You don't need to be seen. You need to stay focused, because the most powerful thing you can do now is become so deeply committed to your own peace that nothing can pull you out of it. They tried to break you, but they failed. They underestimated what was buried beneath the pain. They didn't see the foundation being rebuilt beneath the surface, but now you are rising with intention, with awareness, with unshakable clarity, and you're not rising to hurt anyone. You're rising to honor yourself. You're no longer tolerating confusion, manipulation, or disrespect. Not because you're angry, but because you've healed. This is your moment, not to be loud, but to be unmovable. Not to chase, but to attract. Not to prove, but to become. You're not here to fix what broke you. You're here to become someone it can never touch again. You're not surviving anymore. You're leading with purpose, with vision, with power. Keep standing, keep fighting, because now you win. You didn't come this far to break. Now you didn't rebuild yourself just to crumble when pressure hits. You've already survived the hardest part, the part where you didn't believe in yourself, the part where you doubted your worth, the part where their voice echoed louder than your own. That chapter is over. You're not asking if you're strong enough anymore. You've proven it. Every step you've taken from the wreckage of their damage has been a step into your power. This is no longer about recovering from what happened. This is about rising into who you were always meant to be. You are not here to play small. You are not here to dim your light, to protect fragile egos. You are here to lead your own life with clarity, with strength, with unwavering direction. No one else gets to define your path anymore. No one else gets to decide what you're capable of. They tried, they used fear, they used guilt, they used love as leverage, but it didn't work. You woke up, you saw the truth, and now they no longer hold the pen in your story. You do, and every word you write from here is laced with purpose, with power, with a fire no one can touch. You've reclaimed yourself, but now comes the responsibility to protect that version. You don't let anyone near your peace who once danced in your chaos. You don't entertain energy that drains you. You don't bend just to avoid conflict. Your strength now is not in how much you can endure. It's in how quickly you walk away from what insults your growth. This is not about proving to others that you've changed. It's about never letting yourself return to a place that almost destroyed you. The world will test you. The past may try to whisper again. The triggers might knock louder some days, but that's not a sign you're failing. That's proof you're evolving. You're no longer numb. You're aware, and awareness gives you power. You don't run from discomfort. You face it, you feel it, you use it, you channel it into focus, into discipline, into elevation. Your past was not a mistake. It was your training ground. And now every lesson has become your weapon. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them sit in the confusion of who you've become. You don't need to clear up their misconceptions. You don't need to revisit old versions of yourself to make them comfortable. You've outgrown their narrative. You've outpaced their expectations, and the more you rise, the more obvious it becomes. You were never the weak one. You were the one learning how to fly with broken wings. Now you fly with strength. Now you soar with purpose. Now you lead with silence that speaks louder than any scream. The war they started inside you is over. You didn't just survive it, you conquered it. And now you live in the victory they never thought you'd claim. Stand, fight, win, repeat. Because this is your era and no one can take it.